This is Ike Part 2. Ike Part 2. Where we left off, we were just talking about the new change with Nikita Khrushchev taking over the Soviet Union. We discussed the issues in Hungary and Poland and why we had to stay out. We couldn't go head-to-head because that was part of their sphere of influence. So we're going to see, it's all a chess game. So we're going to see how some other things pop up and how we're going to deal with those. If we do get involved in those countries, those are part of their spheres of influence, then we risk possible nuclear war, which is the end of the world. We don't want that. All right, we'll see a Middle East crisis in 1956. Egypt, also called the United Arab Republic. The United Arab Republic. They will have a new leader, Gamal Abdel Nasser. Nasser. Okay, he will be the president of Egypt. And he is really promoting this Arab nationalism. And this Arab nationalism is not just of Egyptians, but of all Arabs. They should come together and be proud of what they're doing and who they are and things like that. He also wanted to industrialize Egypt. Okay, they needed power. They were way behind the Western world. And you can see how he is dressed. He's dressed in Western clothing. So that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to modernize Egypt. The U.S. offers their help. Secretary of State Dulles, John Dulles, meets with the officials and wanted to offer financial aid to build this dam called the Aswan Dam right here. Here's what it looks like. Satellite picture anyway. They tell Dulles if he doesn't fulfill their offer, the USSR will. Well, Dulles, being a hardline anti-communist, is infuriated and calls it blackmail, withdraws his offer without consulting anyone in the State Department. So he goes a little bit over his head, but withdraws his offer. Some other reasons were their anti-Western policies, their arms and trade agreements that they already had with the communists. Okay, and Russia will come in and help build the dam. So we got an issue there. Okay, another one is the Suez Canal. Okay, the Suez Canal was an important waterway running through Egypt, very important waterway. The canal was owned by a private company whose shareholders were mostly English and French. The canal was an international waterway open to all countries in peacetime or at war. And Nasser will seize, he will take control of the Suez Canal. Okay, he believed that if he takes over the canal, that it will help finance his dam. And he announces that his country will operate the canal and use the toll money for construction of the dam, obviously with the Soviet help. We also see that we have a new country emerge. This is going to be part of this. In 1948 will be Israel, created out of from World War II. Israel will be formed in 1948. Excuse me. Now, there's going to be a secret meeting that takes place, a secret agreement. Dulles, Secretary of State Dulles, will be present at this meeting, but he will be left out of these secret talks. At the London meeting, France secretly informs England that France and Israel had been secretly negotiating a deal that if France ships arms to Israel, Israel will attack Egypt. And Britain and France like this because they can get that Suez Canal back. We don't know anything about it. Okay, we don't have a clue what's going on. So on October 29th, Israel attacks Egypt. They're outnumbered, but they're better trained, and they push Egypt back to the west side of the Suez Canal. So they actually capture the Suez Canal. 2 days later, England and French forces land in Egypt and drive the Egyptians all the way to Cairo. So they are just whooping up the Egyptians. Ike looked like a fool. Eisenhower looks like a fool because he, at the same time, he's making a statement on Hungary saying, he opposed the use of force in settling international disputes, and then our own allies are doing just that. And we don't even make it worse. We don't even know about it. Okay, so on November 5th, the British and French and the Israeli troops withdraw. Pressure by the U.S. and the USSR. Okay, the U.S. pressures England, France, and Israel to withdraw from Egypt, and they do. Also, the USSR threatens the use of the atomic bomb on London and Paris if they don't. So everybody's like, pulling the reins back. Whoa. Now, we do get guaranteed shipping rights in the Suez Canal, but the winner, even though they really got their butts kicked, the winner is going to be Nasser. Nasser's looked like a hero. Okay, he gets all this prestige because he holds the canal, and it really inspired this Arab nationalism even more. And you can see this crowd. Look at this crowd of people he's talking to. Now, in reality, Egypt was on the verge of collapse until the USSR came to their aid, but they won nonetheless, or they looked like they won. Israel also gains a lot of military respect. Okay, everybody realizes that their military is a force because they basically just whipped up on the Arab troops. Okay, the losers are going to be England, France, and the U.S. because we look like we're imperialists again. Even though we had no idea about this, they're our allies. Dulles, our Secretary of State, actually says, "Why'd you stop? Take them, knock them out." But it's not the way things are going to work out. Now in Latin America, some other issues for Ike. In April 1958, President Nixon goes on a goodwill tour and gets stoned on the goodwill tour. Not like you're thinking. And they throw rocks at the limo. And they spit on the limo as it's driving by. The U.S. attitude of, Latin America is our little brother. Latin America begins to resent this because we're spending all this money in the Marshall Plan on Europe. And what are we giving our neighbors? Nothing. Okay, so Nixon is sent on this goodwill tour, and it's not accepted very well. Ike responds with sending out more money, more aid, more military help for the Latin American countries and in the Caribbean as well. And relations do start to improve. Okay, in 1960, Ike goes there and is treated very well. Also, what is created is the OAS, the Organization of American States. That will be created back in 1948. But it's basically to smooth out relationships with the countries. It's very important that we keep our neighbors happy as well. So we don't want to get involved in a dispute with our neighbors. Speaking of, 1959, Cuba. Okay, Fidel Castro, there he is, Fidel Castro. The U.S., we actually helped put him in power. In February 1959, Castro becomes the premier of Cuba. Okay, we actually helped Castro overthrow Fulgencio Batista because he was a dictatorship and frankly he wasn't working well with us. We thought Fidel would. And so we actually help with his revolution. The CIA helps to get him in power and overthrow Batista. And then April comes. Castro pays a visit to the United States. Everybody's pumped. Our new Secretary of State is going to meet with him along with Nixon, our Vice President. And Castro's like welcomed as a hero when he visits Washington. Our new Secretary of State is Christian Herter. Dulles actually dies while he's in office, natural causes. And Herter promises aid to Cuba, and then as soon as Fidel gets back home, he starts his reign of terror against any supporters that were left over, and starts nationalizing the industries, including some industries that were owned by Americans. So all of a sudden, Castro then, the biggest nightmare that could happen, Castro announced that he is communist. He believes in communism. And the Soviets jump on it right away and lend him $12 million. Right. This is a nightmare for us. We just talked about all the work we do to keep our neighbors out of that. And here's a guy 90 miles from Florida. And he's going to be communist. Che Guevara, seen this before, okay? He is a Marxist, another communist. He becomes Castro's economic advisor. Okay, he will actually be, Che Guevara is actually assassinated by the CIA, and then they dump his body somewhere in South America, and they find it. This is a picture of his dead body. An example of some of the things that our government would do, a little assassination. Okay, that's another example of what was going on during the Cold War. All hush hush. You'll see, this always kills me when you see people wearing a shirt with Che Guevara on it. You know, I guarantee you a lot of those people don't realize that he was communist. There's Peter Griffith with the same attire. So that's how we're going to deal with these things, okay? And we are going to constantly be trying to somehow overthrow Fidel Castro. We are very uncomfortable with having a communist government so close to us. We actually will even start to try to sponsor a revolution in Cuba. It's called the Bay of Pigs. Oops, went a little too far. The Bay of Pigs. Many Cubans, some former supporters, fled to the U.S. And we decided to let the refugees try to overthrow Castro. So we will train them, and we're going to launch an invasion called the Bay of Pigs. It is a disaster. Okay, it actually is approved under Eisenhower, and then JFK is president. He's the one that launches it, and it is absolutely crushed, and it is a huge disaster. So it does not work out very well for the Americans. Now, during this time, we also start to see the beginning of the space race. Okay, another example of the Cold War. Robert Goddard will be the man that invents or perfects the liquid fuel rocket engine. And so we are going to have a lot of the technology that both sides have has been stolen or borrowed from the Nazi scientists that made the V-1 and V-2 rockets. And now they're trying to perfect it. In October of 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik. It was a 184-pound satellite, the first man-made satellite in space. And America went crazy. We have this little basketball thing floating around space. We don't know what it can do. We don't know the ramifications of them. Can they watch us? Can they spy on us from that thing? And we know today that really Sputnik was nothing. But at that point, we didn't have a clue about it. Okay, and then in November of 1957, a week later, they launched Sputnik 2, which was a little bit more advanced, fully instrumented, weighed over 1,000 pounds, and it had a little dog in it, a little rescue dog named Laika. First animal into space. Unfortunately, Laika no Laika, because Laika did not survive. But once again, we're outraged. We got to catch up with this. We don't know what they're doing, so we're going to try to fix that. We got to catch up. Okay. All right. That is it for today. Stay classy, Vandalia. We'll continue another one.